Hi there, this is David, and lately there's been a lot of discussion in regards to side quests in JRPGs. After Final Fantasy XVI came out, there was a lot of hubbub about whether they were good side quests or bad side quests, and that really got me thinking about what's everybody's favorite side quests out there. So I went and I invited 15 of my closest YouTube friends, and I asked them and I said, what is your favorite side quest ever in an RPG? And they've all gotten back to me, and here we are, ready to share. And I'd like to kick off with two great content creators, Legions Gaming and Emily at Orbology, who would like to discuss the side quests over in Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
All the recent controversies with Final Fantasy XVI's side quests have sparked, some good discussions on games that have great side quests, and should really important moments be locked behind side quests. In my opinion, I think that they're for the people that really want to understand the lore of the games 100%, know every little detail, people that go out of their way, and it's nice for completionists to get something out of it, story-wise, world building, character development. And I think games like recently, in my opinion, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 does an excellent job at this. By no means do you have to do them to understand the story, but what it does is instead enhance the story so significantly. My favorite side quests from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was Yunie's side quest, which kind of, without spoilers of course, delves into her past and really opens up the character development and world building to the point where it explains the the rank system in the game. For the world, it explains how they were created, what they were created for, and you honestly would not even know about that if you didn't do the side quest. And I genuinely really enjoy when games do things like this. I think it is very important for people like me that are completionists that like to do every single side quest, every nook and cranny of the game, and really give us some fulfillment in doing these side quests. And I think a lot more games these days are doing an excellent job at that, Final Fantasy XVI included.
Hi everyone, it's Emily from Orbology, and a big thank you to David for having me on your channel. When it comes to side quests, there's one title in particular that has really stuck out to me in recent years, of delivering a new way to experience side quests, and a way we haven't really seen in JRPGs before. And that title is none other than Xenoblade Chronicles 3. While it can be argued that nearly half of this game is filled with side quests, I really want to highlight how much the hero and ascension quest really augmented and enriched the experience of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Also brought a unique way to experience new class systems. Now, because this is a fairly new game that came out last year, I'm going to do my best to skirt around spoilers, but I want to highlight Ashira's hero and ascension quest in particular because hers was one of my favorites. When you first meet Ashira, the Cubs commander of Colony 11, the first thing that comes to mind is this chick is absolutely crazy. Now, there's nothing that you do that's particularly interesting during her hero and ascension quests, but what I really appreciated about Ashira's side quests is just the level of depth her character has. And she's more than just some batshit crazy chick who has a sense of bloodlust and doesn't really care if she just dies during battle. I'll leave the details to you if you haven't played through her hero or ascension quest yet, but her story just really resonated with me and really gave me a better understanding and appreciation for what the characters really had to go through in the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And this is just one example of many of how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was able to capture so much lore and character development through these side quests that I think really enriched the entire game experience and gave me a better appreciation for side quests in all of JRPGs I've played so far. And I think it'd be really rewarding to see Monolith Soft as well as some other developers bring side quests more to the forefront of their storytelling, and how it could potentially breathe new life into side quests and enrich the JRPG experience moving forward.
Thank you both so much. I personally loved all the side quests in that game, getting all the heroes, and I even loved that Future Redeemed DLC. There was so much good stuff in that game. It was just fantastic. And now for probably the funniest side quest submission that I've seen, let's go over to Tark's Gauntlet as he talks about Yakuza.
Hello everybody, Tark's Gauntlet here. Side quests have long been a staple of the RPG. When it comes to picking the best, most people would likely default to the ones they have the most emotional attachment to, or those epic quests to take on the game's hardest, most secret bosses, or get the game's best loot. But sometimes it's a small, meaningless quest that just makes you smile that you really hold on to. Such is my submission today, Kazuma Kiryu, Professional Voice Actor, a sub-story from Yakuza Kiwami 2. Mechanically, this quest offers almost nothing for the player to do outside of selecting dialogue choices, and the whole thing begins and ends in a 7-minute span of time. This quest sees Kiryu getting drafted off the street to do voice acting for an up-and-coming video game. Only the person who drafted him wasn't completely honest about what type of game it was. This is a mystery not kept for long, however, as Kiryu discovers exactly what he's voicing while he's in the process of recording the lines and reading his script for the first time. Kiryu, as it is recording for a yaoi story that seems to be reaching its climax. Or at least a climax, if you catch my drift. Kiryu, of course, is completely taken off guard by this, and as a player, this is a feeling I felt right alongside him. I just did not see things going this way. Awkwardly and somewhat uncomfortably, Kiryu navigates the script and the performance through to its conclusion, guided by the player's input. And we, the players at home, share his every reaction in awkward, gleeful delight. There's just something special to me about how this sub-story plays us all for fools, and how encouraging it is to push the action deeper and deeper towards making the main character feel more uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, yet supportive. It's hilarious and left me gasping for air, but also sweet in a way. I would say even a bit encouraging. Boundaries are made to be pushed, poked, prodded at, and teased a bit. After all, where's the fun in life if you never step outside your comfort zone? And that's exactly what we experience with Kiryu in this sub-story.
When Tarks first sent me that clip, he was like, hey, if that's too much, I can change it if you want me to. And I'm like, no, don't change a thing. That is just perfect. That is absolutely hysterical. I love the clip. So please keep it exactly the way that you did. I was just laughing so much. But now, where would any good side quest list be about RPGs if we didn't include the Final Fantasy series? And we have 3 great content creators here who are all talking about Final Fantasy. We have my neighbor, and more importantly, my really good friend, Susie Sphere Hunter, here to talk about the ultimate weapons of Final Fantasy X. We have Professor Noctis, who is actually a college professor, and he teaches a course on Final Fantasy, talking about Final Fantasy 15, and then Zygor Gaming, talking about one of my favorite games in the series, Final Fantasy VI.
So one of my all-time favorite side activities, or side quests, to do in a JRPG is acquiring all of the ultimate weapons in Final Fantasy X, aka the Celestial weapons. And the reason why I love this quest line is because you do it for every single character, but the caveat is you actually have to do something. You go on these multi-part quests to get each individual weapon, and it kind of forces you to experience most, if not all, of the content of FF10. So you've got to do like Yuna's Monster Hunt, and you've got to do like Chocobo races, for example, where, in recent memory, like Final Fantasy specifically, like FF12, you just find the Zodiac Spear. FF13, you do a lot of grinding for crafting resources to craft each ultimate weapon for the party members. And then, FF15 is like, you just upgrade the starting weapon and it becomes the Ultima weapon, but it's like one of the worst weapons in the entire game. And of course, recently, in FF16, you've got to beat the whole game and then beat the whole game again, while, just basically you have to 100% the game and then 100% the game again in New Game Plus mode to get the Ultima weapon. And it looks really cool, but I feel like I didn't really go on a journey to get that weapon specifically, unlike, some of the classic Final Fantasy games, FF10 included, where you actually do stuff. You actually do something to earn those weapons. And I don't know, that's just why I love it so much, is because you spend your time doing something meaningful.
Hey everybody, this is Professor Noctis, and one of my favorite side quests is a behemoth undertaking in Final Fantasy 15. No surprise there. When our favorite boy band, led by Noctis, parks their car at a local farm, they discover that the chocobos, those are the huge rideable chickens in the Final Fantasy universe, are being stalked by a huge monster named Deadeye. So, as a prince trying to do right by his people and improve his street cred, Noctis sets out on a hunt to take down the beast. The quest itself forces you to carefully watch the environment for clues like scratch marks and fallen branches and dead animals to find Deadeye. Now this is especially cool if you're like me and you turn off waypoint markers. It's a lot tougher, but it's a whole lot more immersive. Once you find the behemoth's tracks, you have to stealthily find him and follow him all the way to his lair, whereupon one of the more epic battles in the entire game ensues. Now, not only is this one of the more intense fights early on, but the entire side quest riffs on the traditional gameplay loop of the game, and it makes for one of the more interesting side quests in the entire game. Plus, as a reward for downing Deadeye, well, it's great. You get to ride and even race your very own chocobos from there on. Just a perfect side quest with great rewards, in my opinion.
Hey everyone, it's Zyger from Zyger Gaming here. And I'm so psyched to contribute to this one because when David asked me what my favorite old school RPG side quest was, one jumped into my head right away, and that's the Paladin Shield from Final Fantasy VI. Now don't get me wrong, I did not enjoy doing this quest because it entails equipping the Cursed Shield and then fighting 256 battles in a row to get it. But you could mitigate some of the status ailments via the ribbon, but what you got in the end was so powerful. You got an amazingly powerful shield with high defense and magic evasion rating, but you also got the ability to learn Ultima. In fact, it's the only way you can learn Ultima without having the Esper. So if you pick the Ragnarok sword in Narsh, that's the only way you can get it. But it was just a super powerful item that I really enjoyed, and once you get it, you really get filled with an incredible sense of accomplishment that you don't really get from almost any other item in any other RPG side quest. So there's my choice, and I'm sticking with it.
Those were all some great Final Fantasy side quests, weren't they? But I will say this, I've never once ever gotten the Paladin Shield. I just don't have the patience for that. So Zyger, you are a much better man than I for that. And now, let's go retro. I'm super excited to have the Happy Console Gamer here, K-Bash, Night Sky Prince, and Super Derek, and they're all going to be talking about some fantastic side quests in retro RPGs. They are all men right after my own heart.
One of my favorite side quests of all time is a very, very simple one from a very, very simple time. A time that had incredible games, like the TurboGrafx when it brought out Ys Books 1 and 2, arguably the best way to play these games. And I got it for one Christmas one year, and I adore the game. And I played it so much over the years that one of the side quests has really stood out to me. It's very much like a comfort zone side quest, and it's really kind of entertaining because it takes place right in the beginning of the game. You're just starting to level up and find your way around the land, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I think I'll stop for a drink in my local bar. And you go in there and you talk to the bartender, some other people, but there's one man there, the one-eyed man, who has a problem. Yes, he has a sapphire ring that he was going to give to his wife, but guess what? It got stolen by some thieves, and he wants you to find it. So you're like, yeah, I'll try to find it, and that becomes a bit of a side quest. And it's fascinating how to do this properly, because right in the beginning of the game, you have hardly any money, and you spent all your money on a sword, a shield, and some armor. That's it. So here's how you do it. You go out of the town, you go around, and there's a small mini lake. Here's the thing. If you search at the top of the mini lake, you find a golden vase right there. And I'll tell you, it was just such a weird quest for me because I was running around the land back when I was first playing the game. There was no walkthroughs of the game, and I happened to just touch that spot, and I found the vase, and I'm like, watch this. Like, what is this? And I'm thinking it's like some magical item and all that. So what you do with the vase is you take it back to town to Pim's trading shop. And when you get in there, you realize something, that he's selling the sapphire ring. So does that make him the thief who stole the one-eyed man's sapphire ring? Probably. Or somebody came in and traded it in. One of those things. So we don't know with this Pim guy. Very, very shifty. So what you do is trade in the vase and you get 2,000 gold pieces for that. So all of a sudden you got a lot of money. You're like, hey, this is great. But you got to do one thing. You got this money from the trade-in. You buy the sapphire ring for 1,000. Okay? So you buy that, you return to the bar, and you talk to the one-eyed man, and you're like, I found your ring. And he's like, hey, I'll buy that off you for 1,500 gold pieces. So you make another 500 gold on that. And it's a great way to buy even more weapons and to really kind of give you a boost in the game. And it's one of those side quests that when I play the game, I always do it. That's the first thing that I do. And I have a lot of money to buy some of the better equipment at the beginning of the game. And so that's my favorite quest. It's a real nostalgic one from nearly 30 years ago. Oh, what a time, that's for sure.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Today, I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about Valkyrie Profile. The name is familiar to a lot of people, but it's not exactly your standard or cliched PSX RPG, given that there's platforming and other gameplay twists. But what really makes Valkyrie Profile interesting, especially in the context of this video, is its main story content. Most of Valkyrie Profile is functionally side quest content. That's because the main character, Lenneth, is a Valkyrie who's been tasked by Odin to collect the souls of dead warriors to use as soldiers in the final battle at the end of the world, Ragnarok. How the player goes through the game, what choices they make will determine which recruitable characters they encounter, which side quests they come across, and you'll basically watch the end of many people's lives over the course of the game, each with their own personal struggles and lived realities that you have to empathize with as a practically immortal being from a higher plane. While the game is about Lenneth, her own development is optional content that needs to be unlocked through various requirements. People, entirely regular people, are at the forefront of the story content. Valkyrie Profile takes an empathy-first approach to humankind, and so downplays its own protagonist for the sake of lionizing these small lives. It's a beautiful message conveyed entirely mechanically, and helpfully through what is effectively side quest content. Check it out if you get the chance. Thanks for having me on. Peace out.
The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask has some of the most well-done side quests in gaming. Perhaps this has something to do with the game's original name in development, Zelda Gaiden, where Gaiden in Japanese can mean spin-off or side story. In part, it's because no side quest truly feels like just a side quest. Unlike in many other games where side quests can often feel like auxiliary distractions or ways to pad out gameplay, Majora's Mask blends these side stories into the game's central narrative elements in a way that deeply resonates with the game's themes of time, transformation, and impermanence. As a result, it's impossible for me to focus on just one side quest. Every side quest is framed by the game's unyielding 3-day cycle, with the threats of the looming apocalypse adding a palpable sense of urgency. These aren't mere fetch quests or simple errands. They're an intimate window into the lives of the inhabitants of Termina, capturing their hopes, fears, regrets, and dreams. The mask that you receive from doing these side quests would have entire mechanics hidden beneath them, making you want to dive into every single one of this game's interesting side stories just to make sure you aren't missing anything. These masks would then all culminate at the end and allow the player to unlock the Fierce Deity mask, a mask that allowed Link to transform into a more adult, powerful version of himself. Still, one of the coolest things in Zelda lore to this day. In Majora's Mask, these narratives aren't just bonus content, but a reflection of the broader story, emphasizing the significant individual moments and the human connections in a world teetering on the brink of annihilation.
Hey David, thanks for having me on, everybody. I'm Super Derek, and I had to talk about Door 15 today. Door 15 from Trails in the Sky the Third. A lot of people who've played the Trails in the Sky series might say that Door 15 is not actually a side quest because you have to do it in order to get the true ending. It is technically optional, you don't have to do it, but honestly, you should. It is such a tragic story that plays out during this. I think even discussing it in any amount of detail requires many trigger warnings. It is dark It is deep, it cuts hard, but it characterizes a certain little girl so incredibly well into somebody that I cared very much deeply for, wanted to see do better. And that's the power of RPG side stories. When it can take a black sheep of a game like Trails in the Sky the Third and turn it into one of the highlights of the entire series, wow, it's quite the experience. But I gotta say it again, it's dark, not a feel-good story in the least, but man, does it ever redefine what a side quest or a side story can be.
Those are just so good, I've gotta say. Those are fantastic. And Derek, whenever you brought up Ren and that door, I just teared up. It's just so much. But now, let's go to a more light-hearted route, and let's talk about Persona 4 with Taylor of the Gaming Shelf and Backlog Battle Alex.
What's going on, everyone? My name's Taylor from the channel The Gaming Shelf, and thanks so much, David, for having me on to talk about a side quest from a game that's very dear to my heart, Persona 4. And the side quest from this game that I want to talk about is Kanji Tatsumi's entire social link. Now, there's a lot of amazing social links across the series and even in Persona 4, and I could have chosen really any of them, but to me, Kanji's was my favorite as he's an endlessly fascinating character. When you first meet him in the game, you think he's the typical high school troublemaker, he's got that biker gang look to him, he's always beating people up. But then when you go to his bathhouse inspired dungeon, you get to know how he really thinks and a different side of him. And through his social link events, you really get to know the real Kanji Tatsumi. Obviously, you get practical benefits like extra abilities in battle and a whole new persona, but for me, it was all about the story. It starts off slow and he still has that troublemaker side that he's trying to shake off, but then he slowly reveals his softer side. For one, he fears his mom's really sick at the hospital and it ends up being kind of a false alarm. He sews stuffed animals for a local kid, and then by the end, he finally embraces his true self for who he really is. And the core theme of embracing your true self is why I love Persona 4 so much, and nowhere is that better exemplified than with Kanji's social link. Thanks once again for having me on, David, and for everyone else, I hope to see you over on my channel, The Gaming Shelf.
What's up, everyone? Alex here. For my favorite side quest, I want to talk about Risei's social link from Persona 4. More so than other games in the series, Persona 4 is a game all about becoming whole by accepting every part of ourselves, even the ones that we're not aware of. The shadow, as Carl Jung called it. We all wear different masks in front of our parents, friends, and loved ones. And much like us, Risei wears a lot herself. She's an idol, high school student, a daughter, and a friend. Her shadow portrays her as an object of adoration, to put it kindly. An extremely amplified and warped form of her popularity brought about by her work as an idol. But away from the glitz and glamour, Risei is the kindest and the nicest person you'll ever meet. And when you're able to witness the veneer melt and see the person behind the celebrity mask, you simply can't help but cheer for her as she says the words, "I am you and you are me," not to surrender to her fate, but to accept whatever she can potentially become, good or not. The thing is that Risei's celebrity isn't a mask reserved for the select few. Many of us are surrounded with people who love and care for us, and we owe it to these people to live our best lives. To me, Risei's social link represents the looks can be deceiving approach that Persona 4's characterizations do so well, presenting us with familiar and tropey archetypes, then twisting them in surprising ways. And if you've never played Persona 4 before and thought this was interesting, there's a lot more waiting for you when you get around to playing it.
Of the Persona games, I've gotta say Persona 4 probably is my favorite for those reasons that they listed. It's just such a good entry. But now we've talked a lot about JRPGs. Let's talk about some Western RPGs with Blitz and Miss Bubbles.
What's up, guys? My name is Blitz, and thank you again, David, for having me on again so soon to talk about my favorite side quests in an RPG. Now, my personal favorite comes from a very popular and also kind of a recent title that a lot of people will know, and it's called The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 was an experience in itself, and honestly, all the accolades and the praise that it gets, it's very well deserved. Before I got a chance to even play it, all I kept hearing about was how crazy not only the game's main quest was, but the side missions in itself felt like main stories for actual full-fledged games. Hell, it was one of the main advertising factors that all of these side quests and various other ones that you can do in the game will shape the way that your world is in your own personal playthrough. And the side quest that really sticks with me till this day has to be the Bloody Baron side quest. It's not the only quest, of course, that changes things up in the world, but it's one of the big ones that affects a lot of people that you kind of can play early on, and it's also one that you might hear a lot of people talk about in reference. First things first, when you get to the area of where the Bloody Baron quest starts, depending on your actions in the Nilfgaardian Connection side quest, if you chose to kill the guards or spare their lives, it kind of affects how this quest plays out and how you can get access to the town. Now, I'm not going to spoil the story of this side quest, of course, because it really is impactful, and I'd love to hear what a lot of you guys think about it in the comments below, because I'll be checking. The Bloody Baron quest has so many different outcomes that me and 2 other friends in our own separate playthroughs were playing along around the same time, and when we had finally finished the quest and we're talking to each other, we were blown away to see just how different each one of our outcomes were. And it actually changed up many elements within the rest of the playthrough of our own games. It's safe to say a lot of these outcomes in this quest are not very great outcomes, but seeing the repercussions from it and what actually unfolds, I got personally, I think, the worst ending out of them. Ever since I played The Witcher 3 and that specific side quest in itself, I've often hoped that many other RPG games that I played after the fact would strive and aim towards having their side quests or even main stories give me the same types of feelings. Now, unfortunately, Final Fantasy, as we know, laughably, has not such a great track record with side quests. It seems that deeper side quests are a thing that the Western game developers put more of a focus into, and that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, and it doesn't make or break a game for me personally. It's just an added bonus that I think would be really nice to see other companies of my favorite games include as well. Looking at you, Square Enix. But that is my personal favorite side quest in an RPG of all time. I appreciate you having me on, David. You guys can find me over on Blitz. That's BLTZZ on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and now Threads.
Hello, it's Miss Bubbles. Thank you so much, David, for having me. I wanted to talk about Witcher 3. That's my hands down favorite game of all time, but it was taken, so I thought, why not still stick to CD Projekt Red, but let's go with Cyberpunk 2077. Specifically, I'm gonna talk about Panem and her side quests. Keeping it brief, she's a nomad, and she is one of the people you can romance if you choose to be a male character, but she also arguably has some of the best side quests in this game. And here's a bonus. If you complete all of them, you'll unlock one of the special endings for the game. I won't pick just one side quest in particular because the whole journey with her is freaking amazing. You initially meet her through the main quest, but then she asks you for help to rescue Saul in Riders on the Storm quest. And what seems to be a one-time job then translates to text messages from her, and you can answer her back, and here you are guiding her through her adventure of discovering who she is, who she wants to be, who seems like family to her, and you'll also end up getting to know the nomads as well. And what I love the most is that the more side quests you do with her, the more you get to know her, and you will recognize like she's very impulsive and crazy and she does insane things, but also she is such a sweetheart, and it's a beautiful thing to get to know her. So when you asked me about side quests, the first thing I thought about was Witcher 3. Right after that, I was like, Panem. It just goes to show how much her story resonated with me. To be fair, Cyberpunk's launch was a disaster, but if you give it a try right now, I promise you, Night City is full of amazing main and side quests to take part in, and I really recommend that you get to know Panem. Thank you again, David, for having me. Until next time, stay bubbly.
And now for the moment that you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, my favorite side quest in an RPG, and it comes from none other than Chrono Trigger. When you first meet up with Marl, she's pretty much just like running away from home after having a falling out with her father, and her mother is nowhere in the picture. And then you go really the entire game without truly knowing what went on with her and her family and why she chose to leave the castle. That is till pretty much the very end of the game, when you hear that her father's put on trial for the missing rainbow shell. So you set off on a quest to find it by first going away to the past and talking to the adventurer Toma, who gives you a clue about its location in the present day. So you then travel forward to the future, pour some soda on the guy's grave, and unlock the Giant's Claw, which is actually the buried remnants of the Reptites' lair from 65 million BC. So here, you get to traverse the entire dungeon, getting great new treasures and fighting super bosses before finding that shell and busting in on King Guardia's trial, proving him innocent, and getting rid of that evil Chancellor once and for all. Not only do you now get to right the wrongs of the past, but you also get to learn about Marl's relationship with her father as well as her late mother, and then refine that rainbow shell into some fantastic equipment. I would just like to give a huge shout out, a huge thank you to all of you for participating. And if any of you are not subscribed to any of their channels, please look in the pinned comment and find their channel. Go on over there, check them out, and subscribe to them. They are all fantastic content creators. And thank you again so much for watching and as well as participating in this. This was so much fun. I love talking about great JRPGs, great side quests, just my favorite things in RPGs. And everybody out there, have a good day.